It makes total sense now.
Ellen?
It's the way you live, the way you move around. You're just not cut out for the real world, are you? Are you afraid you'll end up like
Ellen.
Bar? Is that what this is?
Look out the window.
No, I've work to do.
Just
And
humor
you
me.
need to leave.
Okay.
Let go of me.
Can you tell me what you see?
I see the same things I see every day.
Well, imagine you've never seen it. Imagine you've spent your whole life in other parts of the world, being told every day you're defending freedom. And finally you decide you've had enough. Time to see what you've given up your whole life for. Maybe get some of that freedom for yourself. Look at the people. Tell me which ones are free. Free from debt, anxiety, stress, fear, failure, indignity, betrayal. How many wish they were born knowing what they know now? Ask yourself, how many would do things the same way all over again? And how many would live their lives like me?
Welcome to Digital Nomad on Fire. And as Tom Cruise was saying in the excellent movie Jack Reacher, a lot of people do, I mean, it's making a slightly different point to me, but it's still quite relevant to most people. A lot of people, especially in democracies, do have a lot of freedom. But do we really exercise it? Do we really follow our dreams? Do we really do the stuff we want to do in life? And of course, this channel is about being a digital nomad. It's about FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And a lot of people are interested in these things. I guess that's why you're watching. But they don't do anything about it because, oh, you can't be a digital nomad because your job doesn't allow it. Or you have a mortgage, maybe you have a wife and kids, or a husband and kids, or you're restrained, or you have car payments or house payments. Anyone can be a digital nomad, pretty much. And there are disabled people that do it. People of all races do it. People of all ages do it. It's really just about how flexible you are and how willing to try new things you are. So if you, and this could be more difficult if say at the moment you earn quite a lot of money, you earn $100,000 a year, but you couldn't do that on a job on the road. You might think, well, I'm not going to be able to make enough money to live. You can live very cheaply overseas. I've got another video about this, which I'll link. But you can live very cheaply overseas. I've stayed in beach huts in, say, Goa or in India or in Thailand for $3 a night. 3. THRE 3. And they were pretty nice. I mean, they're basic, but you're right on the beach in Goa. The cost of living is probably much cheaper in a lot of places than where it is where you're from if you're from a developed country. So I'm certainly not advocating dropping everything and just doing it and seeing what happens. You can take a lot of small steps to being a digital nomad to push you in the right direction. You can take a lot of small steps in FIRE as well, financial independence, retire early. The premise of FIRE, if you're not familiar with it, is these are just example figures, but it works out something like this. You save up $1 million. I think it may have been Mr. Money Mustache that came up with this, but I'm not sure. You save up $1 million, you should be able to get at least 4% interest on that on average over the long term. If you're in, this isn't financial advice, but if you're in crypto, even in index funds, you normally get more than that. But this is conservative. If you can make 4% interest a year, you get $40,000 a year. If you can live off $40,000 a year, that's it. You never have to work again. Now, of course, you may want to work a little bit. You may be able to live somewhere cheaper than that, in which case the equation is different. Or you may want to live on more than that, so you have to save up more money. The equation is up to you in terms of what's important for you and what you want to do. But yeah, if you want to move towards FIRE, financial independence, you want to be less reliant on having to have a particular job, there's steps you can do to walk in that direction. Move into a cheaper apartment. Do you really need a flat that's as big as yours is? Get a cheaper, say, Japanese second-hand car that will be reliable, and get rid of the BMW or expensive car payment. That car payment could mean you end up having to work another 3 or 5 years. So is having a used Toyota versus having a BMW, Is that worth an extra 5 years of having to wake up every day and go to a job you hate? It's a question. I mean, you answer it. There's a lot of things we can do to move in the right direction towards these things without having to dive in immediately. If you're looking at being a digital nomad, go backpacking for a weekend by yourself. Or for a week. Go to a cheaper country that's not too far. Whether it's Southeast Asia, whether it's Europe, whatever. Just go for a week. Even go with a friend, stay in a hostel, stay in a dorm, see how you get on with that. Maybe you think you can't stay in a hostel dorm, but especially if you take silicone earplugs, you take an eye mask, you don't even need those most of the time, you'll probably be fine. But it's important to get used to traveling alone as a digital nomad, because that's what you're going to do probably quite a lot. So just, don't dive in. Work out what kind of work you can do on the road. Travel to some cheap places. Figure out how much you can live on, and just edge in that direction. It's quite doable. You could be a digital nomad. It's not as hard as you think. You can live on probably a lot less money than you think you need to live in much cheaper countries where you'd have much more fun, and life will be easier than where it is back home potentially in many ways. Just give it a go. So figure out how much you can live on when you do a test trip or whatever. It could be 10% of what you live on now. You don't need a lot to live. I'm not suggesting you go and stay in that beach hut, but for example, now I pay $400 a month rent in Prague, a very developed city, right in the centre, in a shared apartment. So there's a lot of options you can have. Do what's right for you. Go to places that appeal to you. Live your life the way you want to live your life, whatever that means. Just start testing it out. It's much easier and much cheaper to do than you probably think it is. And just remember, the really positive point is that you'll be dead soon. I mean, that's not ideal. No one really wants to be dead, hopefully, but you will be dead soon. So you might as well just give it a go, because do you want to be on your deathbed whenever that comes, thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd tried being a digital nomad, but it just wasn't possible for me"? It's possible for you. Trust me, it is possible. You can do it. And there's a lot of little steps you can take right now to just edge in that direction, dip a toe in the water, get a bit closer to it. Move to a cheaper flat in where you live now. Get a cheaper car, get rid of a car. I've never owned a car, never wanted one. I spend $200 a year on all public transport in Prague, $200. And an Uber is $3 a ride, more or less, $4. I'm just converting this to US. And I don't take Uber that often anyway. Think how much money you could save if those were all your local city transport costs. $1 or $2 for one of the best beers in the world. That's what it costs here. And this is just one place. There's loads of places as cheap as this, and in many ways nicer than probably where I'm from, nicer than where you're from, and more interesting because you're foreign. And people here are different. Like, it's just a more stimulating environment. So you can do it. And if you're interested in it, just edge in that direction. And also think about what the worst case is. If you tried it, if you've tested it out with traveling, you became a digital nomad, you don't like it, you can go home. You could probably get a similar job to the one you've got now easily. The 4-hour work week is very useful for some ideas with this, and I've on the podcast recently, I did a retrospective look at the 4-hour work week, the classical digital nomad book. I think this came out before the term existed. There's a lot of good ideas in terms of persuading your boss to let you work remotely. And of course, because of the virus, that's now much more relevant than it was when that book came out. So maybe you don't even have to quit your job at all. Maybe you could go and stay in Greece or Spain or Argentina or Thailand. I highly recommend Southeast Asia as a digital nomad location because people are super nice, the weather's great, it's relatively safe, the food's great. Maybe you could just go and work in Thailand for a month, and your boss maybe doesn't even have to know, or maybe you've worked remotely before and proven that you can do it, so you could do that for a month. Test the water, build up to this. I mean, I started being a digital nomad slowly. First it was a few weeks a year, then it was a few months a year, and then it was a year and a half straight, and then I moved to Vietnam. So yeah, just build up to this. You can do it. Just take the steps required. And in terms of financial freedom, which perfectly dovetails to this, what's important to you? Is it the nice car? Is it having 3 unused rooms in your house? Or is it loads of stuff you never use? Is it lots of expensive restaurant dinners? Or is it waking up every day in the city you want to wake up in the country you want to wake up in, with who you want to be with, Not knowing, or knowing that you could go to any country you want that day. You're not in any debt. You have as much money as you'll ever need, or you have enough money for a few years, and you have complete freedom. Trust me, that for me anyway, the latter is much more important. So yeah, I think Tom Cruise, in his wisdom, and Jack Reacher in his wisdom, is again making a slightly different point to what I'm making, but it's so close that it's very relevant. And again, I'm not saying I'm like Jack Reacher or Tom Cruise, of course not. But the points he's making in the video at the start there are very relevant to most people, I think. If you hate your job, there's tons of options. Start taking small steps towards improving it. And if you're curious about being a digital nomad, you can do it. Just start moving in that direction. And when you do, I'll see you guys on the road.